Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with raregem-productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to activate your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy-Maxfield.
And I'm Dr. Cheryl-Watkins-Moore, lead of our inclusion initiative here in the St. Louis region. Hey, Christy girl.
How are you, dear?
Doing well. We're going to activate and imbue.
Yes. If you've listened to one of our prior shows, sometimes we activate, sometimes we imbue. Yes. You know, we like to mix it up.
Yes.
But welcome back. We're glad you're listening. We're happy to be doing our 7th season, new interviews, a superb lineup of guests and great shows.
Yes.
And our listenership continues to grow. So thank you for tuning in. And be sure you also check out the websites of our sponsors, CET and BioSTL. Our website, their website, you can stay up to date on all the great things that are going on.
Lots of great stuff.
Wonderful stuff. From the Vision Symposium in October to Square One that's starting in September and all things in between. And keep track of where Cheryl is because she's always on the move.
Oh, wow.
You are.
Ugh.
You're booking things like you're going to New Orleans.
I'm going to New Orleans.
Because you're doing super special stuff here and they want to know what the super special sauce is. And then you're going to tell them and then they're going to be awesome too.
And I'm going to be able to get a beignet.
I really need to be your groupie, your roadie, your baggage girl or something. I don't know what.
I have to bring you some back.
That would be awesome. So as we tune in, we hope that you'll also share, invite 5 friends to subscribe. You can find us wherever you find your favorite podcast, whether it's iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, LinkedIn, all over the nets.
Wherever you are, we want to be with you.
We do. And what are we doing with them today?
Well, today, we're going to learn something really interesting, as always. In today's competitive marketplace, it's critical, you guys, for business professionals to be adaptable to change and to stay on top of industry trends. Absolutely.
Yep.
That's a given, right? If you're not working.
No.
Successful executives, they should read regularly. They subscribe to industry news and follow other industry leaders. Relevancy may require additional time, effort, and training to help managers improve and refine their leadership skills.
So I think what you're saying have to be entrepreneurial where they are, even if where they are is in corporate America?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And stay up to date, right?
Yes, of course.
So today we're going to be joined by an organization that believes creativity is the ultimate business advantage. They have the great idea that the arts can provide powerful methods for integrating imaginative problem solving and innovative thinking into the workplace. That is so cool.
I know, and they're based right here.
Yes. So if you don't know who we're talking about, it's COCABiz. COCABiz has programs that bring thoughtful, social, and curious individuals together in an intelligent and engaging atmosphere to inspire business professionals. Their goal is to explore new approaches and imaginative problem solving to address business challenges and emerging ideas across industries. Steve Knight, director, and Rob Morgan, teaching artist with COCABiz, joins us when we come back. So, stay listening.
BioSTL is a proud founding sponsor of this Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast, and we want you to know all about the great things they are up to. BioSTL fosters collaborative efforts to advance innovation and entrepreneurship that builds on St. Louis's world-class medical and plant biosciences. Their global STL initiative aims to build a direct link between St. Louis and other countries by recruiting high-growth international companies to establish a United States presence in St. Louis. You can learn more about BioSTL and the Global STL Initiative by visiting biostl.org. And for your renewed and continuing support, BioSTL, we say thank you.
I'm Steve Knight from COCABiz, and entrepreneurially thinking to me means taking a great idea that's never been seen before and bringing it into the world.
Joining us today is Steve Knight, Director of COCABiz. He designs and facilitates experiential workshops to foster creativity and collaboration, design thinking, and business storytelling using the power of the arts. Also with us is Rob Morgan, a production designer and professor at Washington University, and he also serves as a teaching artist for COCABiz. So glad you guys could join us.
Yes, thank you.
So glad to be here. Thank you for asking us.
Oh, yes. I, full disclosure, had a chance to work with both fine gentlemen doing a program that we actually did on site at a factory with Margin Spark, another venture that I'm involved with, and our friend Mark Bowers, and all sorts of creativity ensued.
I was going to say that had to be pretty interesting.
We were on a fabrication floor at Foreman Fabricators, and it was a fabulous setting. We had a really good time.
Yeah, it was kind of a brilliant idea that you all suggested.
I think we have to give Mark the credit.
St. Louis makes, but we were working on an experience that had to do with design thinking and collaborative practices on creative teams, and the focus was small manufacturing in St. Louis. So Mark, I guess, had the idea of, hey, why not do it at a small manufacturing facility?
That's pretty cool.
And it was really nice.
It
was cool. And Rob, thank goodness, was up for it. Being in the back of while the metal was being banged on and production was going on in the next room.
We didn't shut down production at all.
Music. That was just music in the background, right?
It was cool.
It was all for real. So thank you guys for joining us. Steve, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what COCABiz is? Because I bet there are folks even locally, even though our listeners come up from all over the country and all over the world, but folks right here who may not know what COCABiz is. They may not COCA, though.
Right. COCA is, if I go into almost any room in St. Louis and say, who knows COCA? Oh, some hands will always go up. But COCA's our mothership and celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. And COCA's, even though it's in little old St. Louis, it's like the fourth largest community nonprofit arts center in the country. It's pretty amazing. More than 50,000 participants.
Largest?
Yeah.
Wow.
We had to, we were saying that for several years, and finally somebody asked our
they fact checked and found out, yes,
is that for real? And somebody actually, is based on number of participants per year.
Wow.
So it's not just in the building in University City, but also COCA has teaching artists embedded in schools throughout the region, and lots of programs that are out in the community. Part of COCA's idea is to be, the connective tissue in the St. Louis region. And COCABiz is one of the newer initiatives at COCA. It was really born about 7-8 years ago, sort of in the midst of the downturn, in the recession. And kind of the short version of how it came about was, we're lucky enough to have quite a number of senior business leaders on our board, as well as some folks that are in the startup entrepreneurial world. A great example is Tom Hillman, who is one of the real idea generators on the COCABiz concept. So during the downturn, we had board members who were kind of saying, we know we're on the board so that COCA can get support and money from us. But we're all trying to kind of reinvent our businesses. If we're big businesses, we're trying to change fast, cultivate cultures that are more risk-taking and more supportive of innovation and trying new things. And don't you artists know something about that creativity thing, And so everybody thought, oh, cool idea, art, business, wow, sexy. But like many entrepreneurial ventures, a good idea, doesn't necessarily. It's what would you actually do was kind of a challenge, right? So COCA kind of took COCABiz like an entrepreneurial project, and we went through an incubator process, actually. Very interesting.
Awesome.
It was the thing called EMC Arts Innovation Labs, funded by the Doris Duke Foundation. And arts organizations proposed ideas, and those that were selected went through kind of a year-long process to help the arts organization figure out how to go to market, so to speak.
Well, and create an earned revenue source, right? Because in addition to helping those members of your board and the extended business community, this is a way to further monetize the assets of the organization, which are primarily the talent.
That's right. And that was a big part of it. Was like, we have all these great teaching artists that work with COCA. Like, that's a huge resource. And the tension, it was really an interesting year. And it was when we got right down to it, the art side of the house, excited,
sure.
teaching artists, but there was kind of a fear factor of, these business people are going to maybe kind of crush the life out of us, and where's the authenticity going to be?
Fun,
It'll be death by PowerPoint, and
oh Lord.
And
I think actually one of your programs now is how not to die by PowerPoint.
Exactly. Yeah,
so transform from within.
Speaker. Right.
La revolution. Yes. Okay.
And the business side too, they're like, this is really cool, artists, but it'll be fun, but how will I justify it to my boss, and why should I spend money and time?
You're
and
getting right brain and left brain together in the same room.
It's like, where's the ROI? And so that was kind of the tension, So the model that COCABiz developed was this partnership between a business facilitator and a teaching artist, with the role of the artist being to really put people through experiences from their art form. They're not just talking about it, but hands-on, immersive activities. And the role of the facilitator is to periodically ask people to reflect on what's going on, what's coming up, what are you discovering, and how can you kind of walk that back to the team you're on or the project you're working on? How can you apply what you're discovering? So that's the model, kind of immersion through arts activities and then reflection on application.
So art activity. Now, I've been in corporate, a while before I transitioned into our startup community.
Have you had to make things with like pipe cleaners and stuff?
Oh, we had to create boats that could float in pools. So
Okay. Yeah, we've had some similar design challenges with COCABiz, but I don't think you necessarily had the business facilitator is the feeling I'm getting from you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. What does that look like in a strategy session with the business, a business group? What are some of the activities from the art side that connect back to the business?
Well, I want to let Rob talk in a second here and tell you kind of what
we'll let him
he
talk.
does.
I mean, eye candy.
Yeah.
We need that in the studio as well.
Is this be streaming live video so you can see Rob?
We'll make sure that folks can at least get a picture and not be overwhelmed by the brilliance.
He's pretty incredible.
It's pretty incredible.
To give you the context, and then Rob, they're depending on the program, the teaching artist might be a poet, might be an actor, might be an improv performer, might even be a dancer or choreographer or a visual artist, right, in the visual communication program.
Ed Reggie also joined us for the
Ed's improv
session
world.
we did. Yeah.
And Rob's a phenomenal scenic design artist. He can tell you a little bit about his world, but he works all over the country as well as designing at the Muni and teaching scenic design. And so he's a master of that artistic form. And so he draws on that background. I don't know if you can...
I'll just let you go.
Go. Yeah. So we bring Rob. We bring Rob into the process when there's teams that need to work together more creatively and maybe think about design.
That's right. I don't think I can top master of the artistic form.
I'm just going
to let it go.
I love that. But you saw Cheryl's face. She was kind of like, I've had to make things in sort of my businessy creative class, right? So how do you combat that when you walk in the room and they're like, now we're going to work with COCABiz?
And you alluded to this before, it's all about how Steve sort of sets it up. In a way, I'm being exposed and have many, many times to many, many corporations, to different individuals. And I tell them about what I do. How we generate an idea when it comes to collaborating on a theater piece. There's a lot of parallels to what you all do in the business world. And it's a team of artists trying to work together in a creative team to create a product. That product is a stage show. Our deadline is opening night. There's a lot of parallels there. So in the early days, I've been doing this, I guess, as long as COCABiz has been around almost. We learned about, Steve's like, just come in and talk about what you do. And I would, but then we would see the parallels and hopefully the audience would see the parallels. And I think there's a lot of takeaway to, the idea of visual, my realm is, or my language is all visual. And that's really important when it comes to, applying these kind of concepts to a business environment, like less, when we talk about the death by PowerPoint, that idea of having a visual image that an audience will better remember later than just a bunch of bullet points on a slide, that's an important takeaway, I think, for a business that's trying to create a really flashy presentation in the sort of realm of how Steve Jobs used to do it.
So are you like having them, is it hands-on? They're not just hearing your story and hearing, how the how visual images impact, but are you having them do hands-on type of activities?
Yeah, we have one particular module we called a cardboard chair, basically, a cardboard stool. We'll do something along those lines where we'll go through a design thinking process in under an hour. We call it a crash course. Mm-hmm. And it's all about getting input from the user, the end user. In this case, we usually use Steve. And
make Steve's chair. Make it beautiful.
Make Steve's chair. And he's, you have to have a level of empathy at that stage and understand your user and think of design thinking as a two-way street. Like you might get to the prototyping stage and go, oh, you know what? We didn't ask the right questions in the first stage. So we do a crash course in that, and it's the debrief at the end, I think. It's the takeaways. People come away and they're like, you know what? The next time I walk into a boardroom, I'm going to have a different energy. I'm going to ask different questions.
Well, it's almost like what you're doing is you're bringing innovation, that innovation concept, that entrepreneurially thinking concept to these individuals, because you're right. You do, when you're thinking about how do I present to the board or whatever, you're thinking information, but not being creative in how you present that information, which I think is really kind of very, very cool.
And that could be the difference. Really.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that can be the difference between when I worked at a large pharma company that was family owned, the difference was the family would come around once a year to visit the different divisions, and you had to present in front of them, and it's really off-putting when you're presenting and half the family's asleep. So
engaging your audience is rule number one.
Reading the audience.
Their whole thing was, do I have enough money to go on the ski trip?
Okay, well then in that case, hard to engage your audience.
But I think that this is really, you're having people who consistently think of, how do I get information to folks? How can I do it in a most creative and engaging, impactful way? Certainly. Which is great.
Yeah.
Do you find that you said, folks had some trepidation of putting creativity into business, or is this just like a one-shot deal where we get to do arts and crafts for a day kind of thing? Right. all the snide comments we've all made about different in-services kind of thing. Once you guys have come in and done your work, does that usually flip on its head? Are you finding that, I would imagine now that we're 7 or 8 years into COCABiz, that the value that might have been in question, the ROI that might have been in question is much more transparent? Is that the case?
Yeah, and I think, we have the organizations we work with, there's sort of a spectrum of involvement and engagement, and in an increasing number of cases, we're like embedded, in a core strategy around how they're developing people and behaviors to drive a culture towards being more collaborative, more accepting of creative risk.
So it's not a one-shot deal. You are coming in and being, that's really interesting.
So we have the most opportunity then to kind of have a long-term effect, and that's that's one of our kind of validation points, why they keep bringing us back, and they've embedded us in a core curriculum. And some of those things are with the accelerator startup community, and some of those things where we're doing ongoing work as a core part of their learning strategy are for some of the biggest companies in the region. But at the other end of the spectrum, where we probably have less long-term impact, but maybe a lot of short-term impact on a project or a planning day or something. A company will bring us in. Just recently, we did a project where the company was having a 2-day planning conference with 60 of their senior people, and they felt like they'd done this for years. They had their annual planning. It was like just all, add a couple percents on last year, and they said, no, we need to rethink our models. We really want to come at things, maybe even reinvent our business model this year. So we want COCABiz to front end our planning conference and spend 4 hours with us, really taking people to a new place where they're not using their sort of cognitive thinking habits, and really introduce the idea that anybody can have a brilliant suggestion, and that the primary way to show you're smart should not be to poke holes in ideas that other people have. Kind of the yes and idea, right?
Yes, yeah.
We all kind of show how brilliant we are by telling you how dumb you are, right? Like, that'll never work. You weren't here in 1972. We don't have the budget.
We've always done it this way.
Right.
So in those things, it might be a one-off, but we're hopefully framing up a context that will enable them to do some things short-term, whether it's planning or whether it's a particular project team, to kind of open up the collaboration, open up the ability to risk with each other and support each other in exploring new ideas. So it's kind of the spectrum from long-term to like
cool.
just, yeah.
That's exciting.
I think one other aspect of that, and in those types of situations, the hierarchy is removed. And that's a very important aspect of it, that the CEO and the mailroom guy are at the same table making the same cardboard stool. And that's important. I think
that's very important. I think I was just going to ask you this, is when you look at when you're talking to or engaging business leaders about bringing COCABiz in, what do you think what are they saying are their biggest challenges for their organizations, and how do they think you're going to impact?
Yeah, it really obviously depends on the organization and why we're in discussion with them. But some of the top things are, one that we get asked for a lot is this whole realm of business storytelling and presentation skills. To get out of the data dump, get out of the death by PowerPoint. How can we help our people become really use storytelling skills to connect with a human instead of a computer with just data. So we'll be using a poet and a visual artist and an actor, right? The language of story, visuals if you're going to put them up there, and Rob works on that, and then an actor on how you align your body and voice with the story that you're telling and the message. So that's one arena. Another we've been talking about, which is we're not good at collaborating on teams. We get in a meeting or on a project team and everybody waits for the senior person to talk, and everybody's afraid to take too much risk in suggesting crazy ideas. And we find that we go a long way down a project path before we get feedback and find out maybe that's not going to work. We're overinvested in a path the client doesn't like. So how do we open up? And the third area that we're getting more and more active in is the whole connection between diverse backgrounds and viewpoints and life experiences, the connection between that and creativity and innovation. So we've actually been offering a workshop that's about opening up appreciation of differences on a team and opening up, making it safe and not worrying too much about political correctness. Am I going to say the wrong thing? Because what good is a diverse team if everybody is just sort of towing the safe line? So that program is called Acting with Awareness, Unlocking the Power of Diversity. So it's that diversity to innovation connection that's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to come right back and talk more about that in just a minute.
CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, is a proud founding sponsor of this Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. We want you to know all about the great things they are up to. Square One is CET's flagship program for entrepreneurs. It's a hands-on training program designed to provide support to first-time entrepreneurs in the St. Louis region actively engaged in the development of bioscience, information technology, or advanced manufacturing commercial enterprise. To learn more about Square One Bootcamp or Square One Ignite, visit CETSTL.com. And for your renewed and continuing support, CET, we say thank you.
My name is Rob Morgan. I'm with Washington University in St. Louis. To me, entrepreneurially thinking means coming up with unique ideas in ways that no one's seen before.
So you were just sharing with us about the Acting with Awareness program. And one of the things I always think about when we're trying to work, particularly with startups, to help them understand more about how to build teams is the importance of having diverse perspectives. Not just folks on your team who know how to do things you don't know how to do, but folks on your team who will also push you to think differently, might see the potential pitfalls where you don't see them.
Have different experiences.
Exactly. Blind spots, all those different things. But I've heard this idea of that the most effective founding teams do not have a diversity of vision, but they have a diversity of execution. So everybody's rowing in the same direction, but they might have different strokes, so to speak, right? How have you found that folks, because to say you want diversity of thought because you know that there's a good ROI there, we've got lots of research that says that, right? But diversity of thought also means that more ideas mean that things move a little slower. They potentially move with more friction, potentially conflict, which isn't always bad, right? How have you seen, have you had enough time with the folks in the field to get feedback on sort of what it actually means to build diversity into your culture and how that works?
Yeah, I would say it is definitely a work in progress. And the initial impetus for developing this particular program was not so much from the innovation side. It was really more from we had clients we were doing our regular work with who were saying, you know what, we don't have like an issue here or an incident or anything, but we want to make this a welcoming place for people from all backgrounds, all races, all ages, genders, where everybody can feel like welcome to do their best work, right? And to really contribute. And so that's kind of what we started working on. And there's tons of things out there, resources that have the diversity and inclusion name on them.
Sure.
And we knew that wasn't our expertise and we didn't want to try and do that. So we kind of more went down the path of using, there's a whole actually tradition in theater coming from Augusto Boal in Brazil and carried forward by Michael Road here in the U.S., using theatrical enacting to experience things in a non-intellectual way to kind of build empathy and understanding. And so we drew on that. And as we did it, we began to realize the powerful connection to not only making people feel welcome and safe and appreciated and opening up a place where they can talk more freely, but the power of that when it comes to innovation. And I think
absolutely. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, how many of my bioscience friends could I get in a room for that, right? Because, when you said to not experience it intellectually, I mean, that's how they approach pretty much everything in their life, even the emotional parts of their life. Not to speak for them, but I've seen that play out a few times.
We actually did this workshop just recently with a group of actually bioscience folks, plant science folks. And the workshop design is such that, in 3 hours, we almost do no group discussion it's activity. And at the end, then we talk about what happened.
Wow.
But to kind of get back to your question about friction and slowing things down and conflict, I think one of the factors that we try and introduce, if there really is conflict, is that it's okay to hold two different perspectives in, that
at the same time.
Yeah. Right. That like radical thought. We can you can really think this and I can think that, and we can kind of put that out there and let that sit. We don't have to solve for who's right and who wins. That, in science, it's a little different, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get to something. But when it comes to a perspective or well,
that's got to be a very different, especially if you engaged people in in science, having two distinct individual positions can be very...
And the scientific truth can remain the same. How to go to market can be different.
Right.
All the other things
that just
around
doesn't hold. Yeah, it makes somebody. It can make somebody like, oh my God. Yeah. How do I deal with this?
Right. And this is where the yes and stuff comes into play, where it's building on ideas as opposed to saying, oh, but I like that idea, but we tried that 6 years ago.
Right. You weren't here.
Right.
And Rob, you're seeing the business connection and the creativity intersection, not just at COCABiz, but you're building out an entire cross-disciplinary program at WashU as well around this.
I kind of wear a few different hats. Since I got at WashU and met Steve and work with COCABiz, I teach set design in the performing arts department there, but I also teach a class in creativity. It's called Designing Creativity. It's a fantastic class. It's 80 freshmen every semester.
Wow.
We have a series of guest speakers that come in and talk about how they're creative in medicine and law. And
that's really very
We've
cool.
had comedians come in and talk about how how, they bomb on stage and what they learned about from that failure. And we have different sections of that course, but that's now grown into a new interdisciplinary program called Beyond Boundaries. And that's very exciting. It launches in the fall of 2019 for a first class of roughly 25 to 50 students.
Oh, wow.
And
that's exciting.
it's kind of taking part of what I've learned, a lot of what I've learned at COCABiz, and applying it. This idea that the idea of an institution being kind of set and siloed in the way that it is. This is a whole new idea on top of that. It's one where, let's face it, students are coming from a world where they are customized. They are on-demand programming, and there's this and that. They want a customized education as well.
And then they're going to build customized companies.
Exactly.
Right? They're not just going to slot into,
exactly.
designer role 3B.
Right. So a lot of what I do and what I teach are all these group projects, which again are sort of a nice parallel to COCABiz and what they do. And they're group projects where the diversity of the skills of those students involved is key to the innovations that they create. And it's remarkable to see them all in the same boat in their first year at WashU. Many of them are new to St. Louis in addition to being new to WashU. And it's like I talked about the hierarchy being removed. There's no hierarchy between these students. They were the best and the brightest at the high schools they were at, and now they're in a new pool. And
I love the fact too, because when you're talking about the best and the brightest, they're sometimes so one track, and now you're introducing this whole creative side for them to incorporate into how they think. We always talk about critical thinking is key,
right?
But I think when you add that creative piece to it, you expand the opportunities for people as well.
And one of the biggest challenges with what I do, both teaching but also working with COCABiz participants, is convincing them that they're creative, that all of us are creative. And we had a group of accountants once, and
we don't want any creative accounting.
I'm not trying to throw accountants under the bus.
No, creative accounting lands you
in jail.
With orange, with orange on.
One color. A one-color wardrobe.
Yeah, I think sometimes they think, well, we've got this artist, whoever it is, coming to talk to us, and they're much better, more creative than I am. And this one woman's like, I'm not creative. And I'm like, no, you're not. You are creative. You got dressed this morning. You put that ensemble together. You put that blouse with that skirt, and
whatever it is, it's a look.
That's right.
What was those things when we were little? The
Garanimals. I don't remember them, but my husband asks for them all the time. He's an engineer. Draw whatever conclusions you want from that.
That's interesting that you knew that answer that quickly.
I'm telling you, he's asked for it on a number of occasions, and when he shops for clothing, it's like that row of khakis, that row of long sleeve shirts, that row of short sleeve shirts. And then I didn't realize how endemic it was. I know this is a tangent, but if you go and watch an engineering firm at 5 o'clock where they're all going back to their cars, it's like little engineer, little engineer, little engineer. Like they all shopped at the same store. So it's for animals.
For sure.
Sorry, threw you way off.
Where do we go from Garanimals? I don't no idea.
Oh my God. Well, you're expanding the Garanimal concept, okay? So now they don't need this code to put their clothes together. Actually,
right. I mean, they're creative wherever they are, right? And that, like, we've had that conversation with a few of our guests where, self-identifying as an artist is different than self-identifying as a creative.
Yep.
Yes.
And I never would have self-identified as an artist. I haven't quite gotten to the point where I'm comfortable as a creative, but I could see that happening within my lifetime. That at one point I might actually wake up and be like, that was damn creative. Ergo, I am creative. But that's a big hurdle for folks.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And we're all, again, we all have some bit of creativity in us. Maybe we had a scar, like some sort of scar from third grade where you drew an elephant and your kid
Wrong.
Your neighbor next to you said, that's not an elephant, And we have those scars that we've kind of internalized, and it's hard to pull that child back out sometimes.
And I think you're expanding opportunities for these companies. Because once people can start to think outside of the boundary they've set around themselves and how they come up with, they come up within, I think you can testify to this, I'm just saying, I think they come up with probably ideas that they didn't think were ideas that were valuable or viable, and you set it through the business planning process. Here's a new opportunity for a company.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of companies kind of use that with the 20% time at Google. The idea of a Post-it note came from that 20% time where employees were given the freedom to create.
Yes.
Some support structure.
Exactly.
Some ability to do it. I think one of the kind of fundamental things in all our programs that we do, no matter what the topic is, we're giving people an experience that makes it impossible for them to use their intellectual habits to solve the problem. I mean, everybody's in their job because they're great at getting to the solution fast in their realm,
smart.
right?
They're smart and talented.
They're smart, experienced, talented, so they get the answer fast, which means they have a sort of a cognitive path that might be kind of a rut. And we put them in a place, Rob puts them in a place where they can't use their fast thinking way, and there is maybe no right answer.
That's the thing I was going to... I actually thought that would also be one of those things that comes up, especially when you're working with high performers, whether it's in the workplace or in the academic setting. They're not used to not having the right answer, and they're also not used to failing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
How does that look when you're in the room with these type of people and they push back? What the hell does that look like?
We try and get them. We try and help them see that if you're just doing the right answer, it's probably something you've already done.
Right.
I mean, the right answer and the safe answer is what's already been proven, which is not a recipe for innovation. If we're just doing what we know works because we did it last year, right?
Yep.
So if you're going to forge a new path at all, you gotta go into that we don't know and there is no right answer yet.
And
right?
you touched on the need for structure. A lot of times when I talk to folks in a corporate environment, there's still the obligation of the P&L, and we still have to meet those goals, and we can't let anything slip. Oh, but go be creative, right? And creative is inherently risky and potential for failure, and not making all your goals, right? So, how do you help leadership, who ostensibly are the folks saying we want our team to be more creative and innovative, we want them to be able to communicate differently and collaborate differently? There's also they can't always continue to do business the same way and expect their people to behave in this new way. So how do you create that structure?
It's a huge dilemma for leaders in especially mature organizations, large companies, because you have to run the railroad, right? You have to operate the business that's working and providing revenue today, and that has systems and processes and so on. So innovation and creativity tends to be incremental sometimes in doing the things we know how to do and just replicating it more efficiently and better. So how do you do that? That's kind of one side of the brain versus how do I open up space for rethinking maybe the whole model or launching into a new marketplace with a new product or service. And I think leaders need to really distinguish between those two types of innovation. Are we trying to sort of make the thing we're doing a little bit better incrementally, bit by bit? Or are we really sort of opening up, which means a lot more failure, a lot more iteration, a lot more what Rob talks about, prototyping and testing and going back to the customer and looping? Resource that, support that, celebrate the failures.
What I've seen in more innovative companies that actually believe in innovation, even though you got to do P&L, they split it. So what they do is allow innovation to create and put them in a separate either organization that's not tied to a P&L, so that these individuals can become more, they can start to develop without the burden of, I got to go run to this goal, because that's what happens. You have this duality in having had the responsibility of having a P&L. It becomes very difficult when you say, okay, I want you to think differently, but we got to make our numbers, right? So I've seen
it's a very real tension
where there are companies who are splitting this out, and they're being very successful in doing that. So
we sometimes talk about how there's the age of the rock star CEO, the Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, is kind of gone by the wayside. Now there's entire divisions devoted to this type of work, this type of innovation.
Because what they see, you can't keep doing the same thing.
Right.
And now in our age of innovation, where things are coming out quickly and innovation is being seen on different fronts, from manufacturing to IT to everything else, you've got to think differently, and you've got to engage your people to do that. So what you guys are doing is really amazing.
It's a blast, and we have a chance to work with so many great organizations from the startup world, 630 or Capital Innovators over here at Cortex, up to like an Ameren or a BJC and everything in between, including nonprofits. It's just it's cool. So great to be able to work with this variety of amazing people who are trying to reinvent the community.
You say you're the fourth largest operation in the country doing something like this. COCA is COCA looking at maybe having you guys go outside of the St. Louis region to be able to engage?
There's nothing in our mission that says we're just embedded in St. Louis. It's just kind of where our natural constituency is. And unfortunately, what we're doing is humans in a room. So it's a little hard to just create an app or, do the proverbial
we
scaling.
wrestle with that all the time. People are like, can we sign up for that online? No, not actually. No, sorry.
So we have done some things that are in other parts of the country. And we've been asked for other parts of the world even, but it's a little hard to replicate without the human talent. So we either got to fly them or train them.
Yep. Train the train.
Yeah.
So if folks are interested in working with you, with their company, they can get in touch with you. And also there's often public events that even if I'm not engaged with you through my company.
There are. Yeah, there's a whole other kind of dimension of COCABiz we haven't really talked about, which is we regularly bring in public speakers at the intersection of art, technology, design, and business. Actually, COCABiz started when Dan Pink came, when A Whole New Mind first came out. I don't know if you remember the phrase, the new MBAs and MFA. We brought him in, and there was such a response. That was part of what sparked the invention of COCABiz. But you can go to COCA's website and you'll see everything COCA does, including you can click on COCABiz, and it's COCASTL.org. Just search on COCA and you'll find us.
And
or
COCABiz,
B-I-Z. COCA is C-O-C-A, Center of Creative Arts, but C-O-C-A. We'll get you there.
Wonderful. And if we wanted to check out the work you're doing at WashU, where would we find you, Rob?
My scenic design website is morgansetdesign.com. That's pretty easy to find. But also this new interdisciplinary program that I'm heading up is beyondboundaries.woostel.edu.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for making time to be with us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. This is a blast.
It was. Thank you.
Thanks.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's Entrepreneurially Thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneurially-thinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.